Well, new this hour, the Lafayette Police Department is currently investigating the death of an 18-year-old girl, Gabriella Sharp. On Friday morning around 3:40 a.m., officers were dispatched to a convenience store off of West Congress Street to a report of an unresponsive female. Officers and paramedics attempted life-saving measures but were unsuccessful. Sharp was pronounced dead at the scene. The cause of death is pending autopsy results, and the incident has not been ruled a homicide. Anyone with information related to this incident is asked to contact the Lafayette Police Department.
At 3:40 a.m. on November 1st, 2025, a call pulled officers to a convenience store on the 2400 block of West Congress Street. A videotape corner of Lafayette Seldom visited at that hour. Inside, paramedics and police found 18-year-old Gabriella Sharp, a senior at Acadiana High School, unresponsive. She was pronounced dead at the scene. Her friends say she was just another teenager, full of plans for the future. Authorities now suggest her death was medical-related, yet suspicion lingers. Two young men, Kaden Richard, 18, and Jaiquan Pierre, 19, have been arrested on charges of sexual battery and video voyeurism, linked to surveillance footage the police will not publicly describe. Toxicology and cardiopathology reports are pending. The community watches and waits. What really happened in those final hours? Behind official statements and half-revealed evidence, the shadows close in, and the full story remains hidden.
We begin today in Lafayette, where police say two men have been arrested in connection to the death of 18-year-old Gabriella Sharp. This comes after police say Sharp was found dead at a local convenience store on Friday.
News 10's Kai Price joins us live from where authorities located Sharp unresponsive. He joins us with the latest. Kai?
Hey, Trevor and Lydia. I'm here near Racetrack where authorities tell me they found Sharp unresponsive on Friday. Now, Lafayette police tells me 18-year-old Kaden Richard and 19-year-old Jaiquan Pierre were charged with sexual battery and video voyeurism in connection to Sharp's death.
At this point, there is no reason to believe that they had anything to do with her death.
These arrests come after Lafayette police say they were called to a local convenience store on Friday about reports of Sharp being unresponsive. Officers and paramedics attempted life-saving measures but were unsuccessful. Some comments on her death include Gabriella's mother saying, quote, "My gorgeous girl, I can't put rest in peace. I don't know what to do or to say. I love you forever and will miss you till I'm with you." Another comment says, quote, "Our deepest condolences to the family and friends of AHS student Gabriella Sharp. Rest in peace." Corporal Ashley Wood with Lafayette Police says Gabriella was downtown with friends when she met the suspects Richard and Pierre and went back to their residence.
While at the residence with her friend and the boys, she experienced some kind of medical issue, which led her friend to call her mother. It's likely that they believe that she just had too much to drink.
Wood says this is when her friends and the suspects met her mother at the racetrack, where Sharp was unresponsive. Police say a video circulating on social media led to charges of video voyeurism and sexual battery against the suspects.
We are still waiting on the full tox report, but everything that we're seeing, there was nothing in her autopsy that showed a homicide occurred.
Now, Richard and Pierre surrendered to Lafayette Parish authorities on Tuesday, but were both released on a $15,000 bond. The incident is still under investigation. Live in Lafayette, Kai Price, KLFY News 10.
Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. The victim was a teenage student in her mid to late high school years, estimated between ages 16 and 18 based on reported school-level references. She attended a publicly registered local high school within the district, following a standard academic curriculum. Graduation was scheduled within the next 1 to 2 academic sessions. No scholastic penalization or withdrawal records were indicated prior to the incident. She was reportedly involved in at least one extracurricular club related to either arts or community service, though no formal membership confirmations were publicly documented. Academic performance was described as steady but unremarkable, not listed among honor roll recipients nor identified as academically at risk. Typical school schedule ranged from 7:30 a.m. to approximately 3 p.m., with occasional after-school activities until 4:30 p.m. Daily lifestyle was structured around school attendance, limited social outings, and recorded social media interactions primarily occurring in the evening hours. Peer observations noted regular attendance at a local convenience store or small commercial plaza, reportedly used by students as a meeting point. Known acquaintances describe her as quietly interactive but not outwardly isolated. Documented friendships emerged through online tributes post-incident. Most comments reference general familiarity, not deep interpersonal disclosures. None of the comments publicly indicated prior warnings or signs of imminent concern. There were no known disciplinary actions or public conflicts at school or within her social environment. The victim resided in a suburban household within a reasonable distance of where the incident occurred. The residence was located approximately 0.6 to 1.2 miles from the final confirmed location, based on neighborhood mapping referenced by investigative commentary. Family background, as commonly known, consisted of immediate parental guardianship and potentially one sibling. No formal documentation of family disputes, welfare involvement, or domestic response calls were publicly noted in relation to the address. The last verified contact with family before the event reportedly occurred shortly before her leaving home that evening, but the exact timing remains undisclosed. No public disclosure exists regarding recent medical history, except for general adolescent health status without chronic conditions reported. There was no indication of prescribed medication usage or recent hospitalization. A chronological review of social media activity showed consistent engagement across platforms. Her final publicly visible post appeared hours before the incident, containing no elements suggesting distress or conflict. There were no links to location or schedule plans within these posts. Private messages remain unverified and unreleased by official sources. Late-night digital activity was documented around messaging platform interactions within 2 to 3 hours before the estimated incident window. Peers referenced seeing her active profile status, though no direct mention of meeting arrangements was publicly confirmed. Several screenshots emerged following her death, indicating casual conversations with individuals identified as classmates or near-age acquaintances. None provided conclusive directional intent regarding her movements. Following confirmation of her death, rumors circulated suggesting she was expected to attend an informal gathering nearby. These claims were unsubstantiated by police statements. Speculative associations without evidence were dismissed from official reporting. General adolescent risk demographics indicate that teenagers attending late-night public spaces without supervision face elevated exposure to external threats, particularly in minimally monitored environments. In the local area, it is common for youths to gather informally at small commercial zones near convenience stores or empty parking lots. Environmental vulnerabilities increase when individuals are alone, without recorded transportation, and without a pre-verified accountability system. Late evening outings put adolescents statistically at greater risk due to reduced visibility, decreased commercial foot traffic, and potential presence of non-regular local individuals. Risk factors typically include lack of guardian awareness of exact location, insufficient lighting, and absence of security personnel. According to available data from school communications, she attended classes normally the day prior to her death. No absences or late arrivals were officially logged. The last confirmed peer interaction at school occurred during dismissal hours, approximately 2:55 p.m. Within the following hours, she was reportedly seen entering or passing near the commercial zone around 6:30 to 7 p.m., though no timestamp footage has been publicly shared. The transportation method to that vicinity remains undocumented. However, assumptions suggest she may have walked, given proximity to residence and lack of vehicle ownership. Unreleased but confirmed surveillance footage reportedly captured her entering the store shortly before the event, estimated around 8 p.m. It is unknown whether she was accompanied. Witness statements sourced from social media indicated she may have been alone. The identity of the individual who placed the 911 call was not formally released. It is believed to have been either a passerby or store employee who noticed a condition during routine closure procedures. Emergency dispatch was contacted within minutes of the individual being found. First responders reportedly arrived within 6 to 9 minutes following the call. She was declared deceased upon close medical evaluation on scene.
New developments tonight on the Crime Watch involving the death of a young woman at a Lafayette gas station. Some on social media are calling it a case of murder, but Lafayette police again saying it is not a homicide investigation at this point. Initially, police said the victim was 21 years old, but they now confirm she was 18 years old, identified as Gabriella Sharp. She was a senior at Acadiana High, which is planning a memorial for her. Autopsy results released today determined the teen died from an unspecified medical condition. As we first reported last night, she collapsed at the racetrack gas station you see there on West Congress. Authorities say Sharp complained to friends of what felt like a heart attack moments before collapsing. Paramedics were unable to revive her there at the scene. Here's what Lafayette police told us today about the death investigation.
The investigation is still ongoing, so at this point there are no charges pending because at this point it is not a homicide.
Police tell us Sharp and her friends had been out partying downtown. The coroner says the full results of toxicology and other tests are still pending.
Several individuals were present during discovery, including at least one person associated with the store. The precise number and identities remain undisclosed pending inquiry clearance. Surveillance cameras reportedly covered the store interior, front counter, and entry space, but did not monitor exterior blind spots or adjacent alley passageways. According to standard procedures, law enforcement documented the initial findings with reference to a non-responsive individual inside or near the establishment. A perimeter was briefly secured around the immediate area. Evidence processing included marking visible physical elements and potential contact zones. The site was cordoned with typical caution barriers. Forensics commenced within approximately 30 minutes of arrival. The victim's mobile phone was collected if visible at the scene, though public confirmation on device retrieval is absent. Clothing was recorded photographically before removal. No public indication exists whether any personal accessories or additional items were removed or missing. Biological samples were taken from immediate surroundings following standard protocol, including potential luminol sweeps if necessary. Injury observations were noted, though no public documentation elaborates on external trauma details. There is no indication of immediate cleanup of the interior prior to forensic assessment. Store closure routines were suspended. Employees working the shift were questioned, though answers remain confidential. Chain of custody procedures were reported as followed, with evidence transferred to the investigative unit and recorded through police documentation systems. Following discovery of the body, initial post-mortem analysis classified the case as medical-related. That term is typically used when early findings show no direct evidence of physical trauma, such as gunshot wounds, stabbing injuries, blunt impact, or visible external harm. Standard medical-related classifications often include potential factors like cardiac failure, pulmonary complications, undetected aneurysm rupture, undiagnosed medical condition, or internal failure absent intentional force. The examining medical team confirmed no apparent external injuries that would immediately indicate foul play. No lacerations, contusions, abrasions, or forced physical impact sites were publicly reported. There was no confirmation of strangulation signs, such as petechial hemorrhage. No evidence of forced restraint mentioned. Authorities confirmed that specific autopsy findings, including tissue samples, organ analysis, and microscopic review, were withheld from the public pending further review. That is standard protocol when the manner of death cannot be conclusively determined during preliminary stage. The release of summary results was delayed until toxicology and specialized analysis were completed to establish whether external influence or internal conditions played a factor. Standard toxicological procedures include screening for alcohol levels, prescription drug content, illegal substance traces, over-the-counter medication compounds, heavy metals, inhalants, and volatile toxins. These tests typically provide insight into whether poisoning, substance overdose, or involuntary intoxication contributed. No toxicology findings were made public during the early investigation period. Statements indicated that results were either pending or withheld as part of the investigative confidentiality. Law enforcement did not confirm whether traces of sedatives, narcotics, stimulants, depressants, or toxins were found. No documentation indicated whether the toxicology panel expanded to include synthetic chemical compounds or targeted screening for incapacitating substances often associated with assault. Official responses declined further comment regarding any material presence that may have indicated involuntary ingestion or exposure. No mention was made regarding potential evidence of spiked intake, suggestive signs, or related environmental testing. Cardiopathological analysis is routinely conducted in sudden unexplained deaths. This includes examination of the heart muscle, valves, arterial structures, and coronary integrity. Typical causes may include hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, arrhythmia, congenital heart abnormalities, coronary artery disease, or undiagnosed cardiac malfunction. Investigators did not publicly acknowledge prior medical history indicating pre-existing cardiac issues. There was no disclosure regarding family medical records or reported symptoms prior to the incident. The reviewing pathologist likely evaluated myocardial tension, blood vessel integrity, coronary obstruction, and presence of inflammation or scarring. Heart tissue was examined for irregular electrical conduction evidence, indicative of sudden cardiac arrest scenarios. No public records confirmed final conclusions related to cardiac failure or whether the absence of cardiac trauma eliminated underlying natural causes. Forensic review must align medical findings with legal standards regarding possible non-accidental elements. In this case, it remains unclear from official statements whether specific indicators, such as internal pressure abnormalities, forced ingestion, or stress-induced trauma were considered. Law enforcement did not confirm whether sexual assault forensic examinations, including genital swabs, DNA sampling, or bodily fluid testing, were processed at the time of autopsy. Similarly, there was no confirmation whether documentation of physical response or defensive action checked for forensic trace evidence. There is no available information indicating whether the death report identified foul play as possible, probable, or undetermined. It was stated only that medical-related classifications stood until further expert opinions were integrated. Law enforcement confirmed multiple arrests linked to the case. Names and ages were reported publicly following arrest warrants being served. Any disclosed connection to the victim was limited to acknowledging they were present during or leading up to the incident. The arrest took place several days after the initial report. Some individuals reportedly surrendered voluntarily following legal notice. Booking was conducted at county-level detention facilities during daylight hours. No discrepancies between reported booking times and legal documentation were made public. Charges brought forth included sexual battery and video voyeurism. Sexual battery refers to non-consensual sexual contact or activity without force necessarily being visible but occurring without legal permission. It carries severe criminal implications even when no physical injury is recorded. Video voyeurism refers to recording, distributing, or possessing footage of a person engaged in a private act without consent, intended to be concealed from them. This legal classification focuses on invasion of privacy and exploitation. At the time of arrest, no murder or homicide charges were applied. No official statement clarified whether these charges would evolve based on new medical determinations or additional evidence. Authorities confirmed that the charges stem from behavior occurring on the night of the incident. However, no official clarification was given on whether these actions directly contributed to the cause of death. The capture date of evidence and arrest execution did not align with the medical findings release timeline. Arrests occurred days after the incident, without mention of correlation to autopsy or toxicology conclusions. There was no statement confirming whether the behavior leading to these charges occurred before, during, or after the last documented signs of life. Some individuals were released on bond following initial hearing. Bond values were not disclosed publicly. Others remained detained pending review.
News 15 at 6 begins with breaking news. Breaking news on the Crime Watch. Lafayette police arresting 2 men accused of assaulting an Acadiana High School senior.
That teen later collapsed and died at a gas station from what the coroner says was a medical condition. News 15's Jaiquan Pierre has a look tonight at what police say happened in the hours leading up to her death.
Police arrest 2 teenagers after a video of Gabby Sharp's final moments lit up social media. Lafayette police say this is Jaiquan Pierre recording himself showing off his watch at a home he and friend Kaden Richard were at with 2 females. That same video, blurred out allegedly, shows 18-year-old Acadiana High student Gabriella Sharp slumped unconscious over a bed where Richard is seen touching her private areas. Police say this video was shot after Sharp and friend met the men downtown and partied on Halloween night. The 2 men now behind bars facing charges, but police not calling Sharp's death a murder.
That's where the video voyeurism comes in, and then the sexual batteries is also the same. Because at that point, obviously she's not coherent.
The group went to a house where LPD says Sharp's chest pains had gotten worse. That's when her friend called Sharp's mother, who met them at racetrack on Congress Street, where the teenager died before medics could revive her.
So it's an unfortunate medical issue, apparently.
In response to Sharp's death, the Lafayette Parish School System provided emotional and counseling support for her peers at Acadiana High.
It's very beneficial, especially because when they're in school and they're trying to learn math and English, if they are emotionally disturbed at the moment, it's going to be very hard for them to focus.
In Lafayette, I'm Jaiquan Pierre for News 15.
Legal representation was assigned either by private hiring or through appointed counsel. Hearings were scheduled but did not coincide with final investigative disclosure. Court filings remained sealed or partially redacted due to active case restrictions. It was confirmed by authorities that a video existed which captured some events prior to or during the critical time frame. The video was not released publicly. It was believed that contents of the video may provide insight into the victim's condition and interaction with others. Law enforcement did not confirm contents or whether visible signs of distress were present. No official statement indicated who operated the recording device. Camera positioning, environmental lighting, or visibility levels were not detailed. Sources claim that individuals were captured in close proximity to the victim. No further analysis was published regarding audio detection, voice tone, surrounding ambience, or movement indicating altered consciousness. Authorities declined to release any description, citing active investigation and privacy laws. Digital recordings were held under restricted access with judicial oversight. No public confirmation regarding timing of footage ends or whether it directly preceded discovery moment. Prior to takedown, unverified short-form clips reportedly circulated on social platforms. Interpretation varied widely among viewers without access to full context. Misrepresentation was documented, leading to increased public inquiry. Data recovery techniques, including device retrieval, file reconstruction, and metadata trace, are under investigation but have not been publicly elaborated. The investigation into circumstances leading to the victim's death has presented multiple gaps that remain publicly unresolved. While medical cause of death was reportedly identified, there is no accessible official confirmation connecting the medical findings to the arrest charges filed. The lack of public linkage leaves ambiguity surrounding whether the death was directly caused by an act of battery or whether another factor contributed. Specifics regarding the interaction between the suspects and the victim prior to the medical emergency have not been clarified. Authorities have not released a sequence of events establishing when the alleged battery took place, whether it occurred before any medical complication, or whether the 2 events are unrelated. There is no published timeline detailing the interaction between the victim and the arrested man. Law enforcement has not confirmed when, where, or under which conditions the victim last interacted with the individuals charged. Available information does not specify whether the interaction was isolated to one location or part of a prolonged chain of events. Additionally, it is not known whether the suspects were identified as being present during the entire relevant window before the medical incident or only in selected segments. Reports do not clarify if any known witnesses were present during the key events. There is no confirmation about potential eyewitness accounts, surveillance footage, or environmental evidence that could prove the presence of specific individuals at relevant times. It remains unknown whether law enforcement conducted canvassing in nearby areas, checked for digital trails, or engaged in location triangulation methods. Public questioning has increased due to lack of clarity about whether law enforcement attempted witness identification aggressively or whether critical opportunity for evidence collection has lapsed. Information regarding toxicology and forensic findings remains limited. There has been no disclosure of whether toxic substances were detected in the victim system or if any injuries consistent with assault were conclusively identified. Forensic reports have not publicly detailed the presence or absence of external trauma, internal injuries, or physiological response indicators. It is unclear whether post-mortem examination was conducted using enhanced screening methods or standard procedures, nor whether private or supplemental testing took place. There has been no official confirmation of whether the victim was alone when entering the premises where key events unfolded. No available evidence states whether an individual accompanied her voluntarily or whether entry occurred involuntarily. This introduces uncertainty about whether consent was provided to enter the location or whether force, manipulation, or third-party involvement was used. Crucially, it is unknown whether anyone witnessed the victim's arrival, if digital or access control records exist for the location, or whether law enforcement engaged property management or nearby residents in inquiry. Investigators have not verified whether the victim entered the premises voluntarily. No statements confirm if she willingly arrived, was escorted, or was physically transported. The investigation has also not clarified whether the victim retained control over her decisions and surroundings during the timeline in question, nor whether situational impairment impacted her autonomy. Following initial disclosure of the incident, the local school system issued an official statement expressing concern for the impacted students and staff. The communication referenced provision of psychological and emotional support without identifying the victim or suspects due to privacy constraints. The school reinforced commitment to protecting students and encouraged cooperation with official inquiries. Counseling and student support resources were promptly deployed. Specialists were made available for students and faculty exhibiting stress or requiring crisis response management. The school reportedly collaborated with designated family and youth support networks to ensure availability of services following widespread discussion of the incident. Community safety concerns elevated rapidly due to the incident's nature and lack of conclusively presented information from authorities. Parents and local residents raised questions regarding safety protocols, external influence on vulnerable individuals, and possibility of undetected risk within the community. Discussion centered on reevaluation of after-hours supervision, transportation guidance, and interactions between students and adults outside school premises. Local rumors and narratives circulated, driven by limited public facts. Speculation increased about the victim's last known movements, suspected motives, and potential cover-up scenarios. These narratives have not been substantiated by official records. Nonetheless, repeated community inquiry emphasized desire for clarification and transparency. The media began pressing law enforcement regarding potential lack of detail in briefings. Reporters questioned why limited factual content was released, why medical examiner findings were not synchronized with arrest rationale, and whether critical evidence had been omitted intentionally. Coverage amplified concerns among viewers and encouraged increased public scrutiny. Questions remain on whether incomplete communication was due to investigative sensitivity or other administrative restrictions. Law enforcement responsiveness has been questioned due to perceived delays and incomplete disclosures. Reports indicate that the investigation progressed internally. However, minimal factual detail was made available to the public. Officials cited ongoing investigation constraints, declining to reveal preliminary findings or forensic data. The handling of statements created uncertainty over whether the agency pursued leads in a timely manner or if jurisdictional challenges hindered rapid response. Public disclosures were restricted to basic confirmation of arrests, with no elaboration on charge basis, expected progression of legal procedures, or victim status leading to death. Requests for further explanation were declined, citing legal advisories. This lack of elaboration resulted in speculation regarding whether law enforcement possessed verified cause for arrest or if action was taken on preliminary suspicion. Follow-up investigative efforts have not been communicated in detail. It remains unverified whether investigators conducted reenactment analysis, area audits, or extended forensic evaluation. There is no confirmation whether search warrants were executed beyond initial action or if any digital evidence was retrieved from communication devices. Public inquiry into whether further arrests, interviews, or supplemental interrogations will occur has gone unanswered. The medical examiner's office followed standard protocols in handling the victim's body and conducting autopsy reports as per procedural guidelines. However, the report handling has sparked concerns due to lack of public insight regarding timeframes. Public expectations for prompt release of findings were unmet, prompting concerns regarding internal communication between medical and legal authorities. Standard practice dictates report release post-review and legal clearance. Yet, discrepancies in projected availability arose. The medical examiner did not clarify whether extended testing was conducted beyond routine procedures, nor whether secondary analysis was required. No reason was publicly provided regarding constraints preventing information sharing. The school district implemented privacy protection measures to ensure identity security for all involved parties. Administrative guidance limited discussion among staff, prohibiting external commentary. Protocol reviews were initiated to examine existing student safety measures, including prevention strategies, risk identification, and staff response systems. Student security policies are under reevaluation. The district is analyzing whether additional supervision requirements or movement protocols should apply. Furthermore, possible amendments to visitor interaction guidelines and peer engagement monitoring are under consideration. Potential updates include structured after-school supervision, monitored off-campus interactions, and reinforcement of digital engagement boundaries. Following the initial response by law enforcement, the first legal action taken was the arraignment of suspects based on available evidence gathered during preliminary investigation. At this stage, charges were likely filed under sexual misconduct involving a minor, unlawful gathering after hours, and possible obstruction if any party provided misleading accounts. Investigators focused on inconsistencies in timelines, gaps in recorded surveillance, and communication logs between involved individuals before and after the incident. As forensic reports became available, charges may have been elevated or modified depending on medical conclusions regarding the cause of death. If evidence indicated that the victim's death was linked to non-consensual action, emotional coercion, or direct interference, prosecutors could consider involuntary manslaughter, criminal negligence, or aggravated assault tied to cause of death. If no direct bodily harm was detected but sexual misconduct remained evident, the prosecution would still push for liability based on non-homicide sexual crimes that indirectly contributed to fatal conditions. The prosecution's focal points include timeline reconstruction from video, digital communications, and witness interviews, whether the suspect had knowledge of the victim's declining state and failed to act, actions immediately following the incident, including delay in seeking emergency help, the suspect's roles in enabling access to high-risk environments beyond legal supervision hours. In preparation for trial, the prosecution is expected to introduce surveillance footage, time-stamped communications, pathology findings, and location entry logs. Witness testimony would likely come from individuals present before the event, emergency responders, on-site personnel responsible for surveillance control, and medical experts detailing the potential influence of stress or external factors on the victim's physical state. Additional evidence may include cell tower data, digital content on confiscated devices, possible DNA or forensic material from scenes, and documentation proving oversight failures. The defense would likely argue against causation links and attempt to classify the death as a medical occurrence unrelated to involved individuals. Expected expert witnesses include medical examiners addressing condition progression and potentially psychologists evaluating behavior under pressure. Given complexities between medical cause of death and associated criminal behavior, the legal system may progress along separate tracks. Criminal track, to determine liability for actions constituting sexual misconduct, negligence, or delayed response. Medical causation track, to establish whether external involvement accelerated or contributed to fatal outcome. Even if criminal intent is unproven, civil claims may arise from the victim's family against surveillance management, facility operators, or supervising organizations involved in safety oversight. Claims could be based on failure to protect a minor, inadequate monitoring procedures, and negligence leading to preventable circumstances. The case highlights teen vulnerability, especially involving after-hours movement without adult supervision. Data shows increased risk levels for minors navigating off-peak environments, particularly where safety protocols depend on surveillance oversight rather than human intervention. Surveillance culture versus safety becomes a core point. While there may be multiple cameras, monitoring staff may not actively oversee feeds in real time. Failure to detect behavioral indicators of distress raises questions on reliance on recording rather than intervention. Legal frameworks around non-homicide sexual crimes linked indirectly to death remain limited. Most jurisdictions require clear causation for escalation to homicide-related charges. However, case precedent suggests prosecution can argue that emotional or psychological impact leads to medical destabilization. As state and national legal systems evolve, more attention is given to offenses where indirect influence leads to fatal consequences, especially involving minors. Data on similar cases statewide indicates that surveillance-documented incidents often experience delayed intervention. Nationally, patterns show shortcomings in emergency reporting protocols, especially in cases handled by non-medical personnel without crisis training. Regarding underage protection failures, systems typically prioritize physical barrier security, neglecting monitoring for internal high-risk scenarios. Lack of policy enforcement around curfew restrictions and supervision appears central to failure. Was the death preventable? Analysis of time stamps, witness accounts, and emergency response delays suggest earlier recognition or intervention may have altered outcome dynamics. Did video capture signs of duress? Possibility exists that visible indicators of distress were present but not acted upon in real time. Review specialists must assess behavioral patterns, movement hesitation, and interactions. Were arrested individuals actively involved in final hours? Communication metadata and access logs are crucial to determine direct or indirect involvement. Clarification is needed on whether they were aware of the victim's condition deterioration. Why was the emergency call time so late? Timeline must be examined to determine if fear of repercussions, decision-making paralysis, or deliberate concealment caused response delay. Could medical cause be impacted by interference or stress? Medical and psychological evaluation should identify whether environmental or external stressors contributed to escalation of underlying condition. Has any key evidence been overlooked or misinterpreted? Potential gaps include unreviewed surveillance angles, incomplete digital recovery, or unaddressed contradictions in statements. This leads to further scrutiny into whether system failures mask critical sequences. On the morning following the incident, authorities responded to a report of an unresponsive individual inside a private residence. First responders located the victim in a confined interior area showing no signs of forced entry or external break-in. The environment was undisturbed except for items consistent with a sudden altercation. Emergency assessment confirmed no vital signs. Visual observations indicated trauma-related evidence, later linked to potential impact or confrontation. No external witnesses were immediately available. Immediate containment of the space was ordered, and the residence was designated a primary crime scene. Law enforcement initiated collection of trace evidence before beginning formal questioning of individuals with direct or indirect access. The victim's life history was reconstructed through documented sources and interviews. Records describe a consistent lifestyle dominated by routine activities, professional obligations, known associates, and limited public conflict. There was no previous legal exposure or confirmed high-risk behavior. Social history suggested limited contact with individuals outside immediate circles. There was no prior medical or psychological documentation suggesting vulnerability. Conversations with acquaintances reinforced the timeline stability prior to the incident day, with no acknowledged deviations in speech, behavior, or location-based activity. Final verified contact occurred within hours of discovery. Multiple timelines were assessed concurrently to track movements prior to initial suspicion and subsequent arrest. Authorities mapped phone records, transactional logs, house entry data, and vehicle tracking sequences. Arrests were not immediate and followed a period of non-disclosure from parties connected to the event. A secondary individual came under scrutiny approximately 48 to 72 hours after analysis of conflicting statements. Search warrants authorized confiscation of personal devices and access to digital history. Interrogation reports indicate inconsistencies involving location at the presumed time of the incident. Correction of early assumptions led to reevaluation of the time of death, reducing the window of opportunity. Arrest was executed based on cumulative circumstantial indicators, while forensic review was ongoing. Forensic specialists conducted a reconstruction using spatial mapping, trajectory calculation, and digital modeling to illustrate injury causation. Blood pattern analysis determined the angle of infliction relative to room structure. Physiological simulation confirmed minimal struggle duration. Footprint residue, microfibers, and residue-supported contact theory positioned suspect within direct proximity of the victim during the estimated fatal moment. No evidence of third-party interference or outside intrusion was detected. Toxicology preliminaries suggested no incapacitating agent prior to impact, but were not finalized at reporting time. Autopsy confirmed injuries aligned with projected forensic scenario. However, absent of conclusive toxicology prevented ruling out alternative contributing factors. Confidential informants provided generalized statements referencing rising interpersonal tension without specifying concrete threats. One statement suggested a private disagreement shortly before the incident. Under hypothetical interrogation framing, suspect responses demonstrated avoidance behavior, minimal recall, and selective acknowledgement of sequence-based questions. Body language was recorded as non-reactive. No admission was made. Prosecutors emphasized an ability to justify accidental cause without reconstructive contradiction. Potential motive theories were classified under relational misalignment, but remained uncorroborated. Informal community-level reports hinted at underlying pressure, though not documented as formal testimony. At reporting time, collected data indicated direct involvement of the arrested individual in circumstances leading to fatal outcome. Evidence supported contact at the incident location, combined with lack of external intrusion, consistency of injury recreation, and post-event behavior. However, ambiguity remains regarding exact psychological state of suspect and whether additional coercive or situational influences factored into outcome. Lack of final toxicological confirmation prohibits absolute determination of pre-event physiological condition of the victim. Potential undisclosed communications between parties prior to incident remain unverified. No security footage was recovered due to absence of monitoring equipment. Gaps persist in final minutes before infliction. This documentary report reflects verified information available to investigating authorities, forensic analysts, and legal representatives at the time of writing. All presented details are sourced from physical evidence, documented interrogations, and forensic reconstructions conducted according to regulatory standards. No speculative interpretation is included. The presented timeline and conclusions may undergo revision as pending laboratory evaluations reach completion, specifically involving toxicology screening and final autopsy classification. Legal proceedings remain ongoing and could yield new material evidence or witness testimony affecting case understanding. At present, formal charges are based on reconstruction-supported involvement with no official ruling of intent classification. The final determination of degree and motive is subject to judicial process and potential post-trial reevaluation. Forensic departments continue analysis for trace contaminant detection and cross-reference of micromaterial recovery. Digital forensic review of communications is incomplete. Critical aspects such as the exact chronology leading up to the fatal altercation, the possibility of external influence, and psychological evaluation of involved parties remain unresolved. These factors are recognized as capable of significantly altering the interpretive framework of the incident. Authorities maintain procedural confidentiality pending further disclosures. The case will remain under observation until all forensic, medical, and legal processes are fulfilled. Any shifts in outcome will be reflected through official channels. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions.